Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good day, and just how is everybody doing? Thank you all so much for coming by. I see Internet of Games. So, Marcus, I see you left a message, and I do know what that means. Congratulations on that boss fight. Rouster, how are you? Rouster, I was just thinking about you and earlier today and how much I'm looking forward to Orcs Must Die next year. Because I was like, I have my Orcs Must Die buddy, and obviously we can bring like David Wilson and a few others into that. So, what's up, Rouster? Hey, Lo-Fi, how are you? Jeff Janak, y'all, if y'all did not catch us, Jeff was so gracious to invite me on his channel to talk about Gamescom, and I got to see a bunch of games. And we're going to talk about some of those games. We're going to talk about games we didn't see. Spoiler alert, that was on me for thinking too much of THQ Nordic. No, just kidding. So Darksiders didn't show. I thought it was going to show, but oh well, you win some, you lose some. What's going on? Holds, how are you? How are you? Obi Rose, Obi, how are you? Xbox Internet. Oh, Crazy Louis here. Uh-oh. Y'all know Crazy Louis here. Louis, I may say some stuff that's problematic. I don't know if you want to be here. Crow, what's going on? What's going on? Hey, Wit, how's everyone doing? How is everyone doing? So I have like a lot of topics I want to talk about today. From everything from Black Myth Wukong and a lot of the controversies to also what the game is like to play. So y'all know I was like looking forward to that game, and so I've been playing it. Really excited about that. Also, I want to talk about like obviously Gamescom and some of the games like I mentioned that I'm looking forward to. Also, a game that just trailer launched today that I think would be kind of cool to play, and so I do have that. Was not at Gamescom, and I want to talk. Obviously, Little Nightmares 3. There's something in there about Little Nightmares 3, but it's not actually so much about Little Nightmares 3 about as much about another game. And then probably the most controversial thing is yeah, some stuff that was revealed at Gamescom, and a certain camp is not so excited, or they're kind of split on it. I don't know. Like that's what it is. But if you have been watching my channel, you would have heard the prediction. You would have heard the prediction. And when I say the prediction, you would have heard the analysis. Okay. In Xbox International. I love it. I love it. He's turning the other way, spitting in the wind. I love it. We can see her in here. I can hear myself through the mic, so I'm assuming y'all can hear me. And now whether or not this camera continues to work, I don't know. That's why I do have my little my other webcam here just in case. So we'll see about that. But to get things off, this week was Gamescom. If you did not know, Gamescom is just like another gaming summit that happens kind of at the later part of the summer. Well, it happened this week, obviously, but it happens in Germany. It's like in Europe, and I got to stream with Jeff and Jeff, and I was super excited about it. I was actually supposed to be there, but I have to go to Atlanta tomorrow, and I just didn't want to. It's too much traveling. I don't think Mama Hayes would have let me. Well, not that she would have let me, but she would have guilt tripped me into looking after Remy for a long time. So guess what? Didn't go. Didn't go. So we'll see. We'll see how it. Hey, Extra Life, how are you? Extra Life, I'm glad you're here because we are going to be talking about Black Myth here in a second, but later on in the show. Later on in the show. And y'all, for everybody who has not checked out Extra Life's channel, please go check it out. He does amazing reviews. It's a lot of the same games I play, but he like does really great content on like reviewing the game. And if you stick around for a few more weeks, you just might get to hear his own gaming story. I don't know, wink, wink, smile, smile. That might be like something, sneak peek right there. Um, Hey, Xbox International, thank you for that. Yeah, but I'm just living La Vida. I kind of, as long as I'm not stuck on 420. I was stuck on 420 a long, long time. So we're past that. I'm happy. So yeah, but I want to kick this off by let's see what's the first trailer. So let me start off with like something that disappointed me. All right, I'm going to show a trailer, and I'm going to tell you why I'm just like the spoiler alert. I'm disappointed, but let's see if you're excited. I know. Yeah, we'll just say okay. Here we go.
Where do we go from here? told us nothing of this place. Look at us now. Raiders. Playing with fire. Everything to lose. But even more to gain.
All right, that is Arc Raiders from Embark Studios. So Embark Studios is the ones that they just launched the finals earlier this year. A lot of people are having fun with that game. Free to play. Arc Raiders is free to play. So why am I disappointed? Well, the reason I'm kind of disappointed is Arc Raiders first showed us some footage about 2.5 years ago, back in the Stadia days. We were all excited about it, probably even 3 years ago to this day, and it looked super cool. I was super excited for it at that time. And I still am. But if you didn't know, about 12 to 18 months ago, Arc Raiders took a different turn in direction. So initially it was going to be like this PvE, uh like you team up, you take on like robots and stuff. So think about Helldivers. Like when I saw Helldivers, I was like, oh, that's like Arc Raiders' original game. It was originally supposed to be something similar to that. And then they switched directions and they made it into like a PvE VP. Yeah. I don't know. Actually, I have another game that's kinda like that anyway. So, yeah, I'm gonna say that acronym again. But, yeah, they kinda made it into that, and I was like, "Okay, I'm cool with this," right? Because, I like Destiny 2 specifically. I like to play Gambit in Destiny 2, which is, like, where you are against the computer, but another team, and you have to do it faster than them. I don't know. I was, like, kinda curious. So I really wanted to see where they were at. And so I saw this trailer. It opened up and then that's what they showed us. I don't know what that is. Like it's like I don't know where we're at. And so I was like disappointed. I was like, okay, y'all made us wait like a year and a half since you told us about this repivot, and and that's what you have? Like you couldn't do something else? Like, I don't know. So Lo-Fi and I are gonna have to wait for this like new trailer. Hopefully that happens during the Game Awards. Um, but yeah, I'm not necessarily the super excited about it because of that. Let me get some music going. I don't know. Maybe I'll get some music when I start talking about some other stuff. But yeah, I'm not necessarily like, I'm excited about it on one hand, but I'm not excited about it on one hand because I like Embark Studios. I actually know a few people that work at Embark Studios. Maybe I should tell them, huh? But they're not part of the marketing team. I already know that. Um, but yeah, like the same thing I get upset with like Xbox for, like showing me like a trailer that doesn't show me a trailer. Like, the same thing that they do with that. Like, I don't like companies that like if you don't have anything to show me, don't show me anything. Like I'm like just don't. You know what I mean? Like that's where I'm at. So they showed me something, they didn't show me something. You know, I think what's more important was that they didn't show me. I thought there was probably a deeper meaning when I said that, but as I think about it, like there's really not. But yeah. So what's up, T Wilson? How are you? So yeah, so that was our graders and so I'm a little disappointed in that. All right. So as we keep going, there's a couple other games that I that were showcased at the Games Awards that I do or at the Gamescom that I do want to show. And the next one, and then I have a couple of things that were shown that I'll show later in the show because it makes more sense to show it later. But the next thing is really about Little Nightmares 3. Now, y'all know I'm a huge Little Nightmares fan. You can watch my playthroughs of Little Nightmares from Stadia uh, um, on the channel, right? I played it and then I played it multiple times on the Xbox. I'll probably get it for PlayStation and play it there. I like the story. I like everything. But if you recall, and I'm going to show you all this trailer, right? I'm going to show you the trailer, right? I know, don't get too excited. We're a Little Nightmares fan club here, but don't try to get not too excited because I do want to talk about some other stuff. So here we are, right? I want you to all show, and I'm telling you what I'm showing ahead of events because I want you to take note of some themes, and I want y'all to just remember like what you see when you watch this because it's going to be a quiz. Okay.
Peggy 16.
So Little Nightmares 3, right? Like super cool. But ever since I first saw that trailer, so if y'all remember last year's the Gamescom, they showed Little Nightmares 3, they showed the trailer for the first time. And we're like, oh my goodness, they're coming out with Little Nightmares 3. And alongside that, they also released a podcast that actually it's kind of worth listening to if you like podcasts and like to listen to stories. It's pretty cool. And and so, like, I was waiting and waiting, and then sometime around early this year, like 6 months ago, I started to, like, think about it. And something that always bothered me about this game is it is not being done by the original makers of Little Nightmares. So the original makers of Little Nightmares is a studio called Tarsier Studios, and they're based in Sweden, if I'm not mistaken. And same people, Bandai Namco is going to, like, publish it, so, like, they own the IP, so it makes sense. Bandai Namco owns IP. Tarsier Studios, if you don't recall, was actually bought by Embracer Group, like, 4 years ago, and so, obviously, they're not making it, Bandai Namco makes it, so what does Bandai Namco do? They give it to another kind of one of my favorite studios, Supermassive, who does the Dark Pictures anthology series. So all those like uh I don't know, Until Dawn, The Quarry, that whole series, that's super massive, right? The like kind of the walking simulator, scary, choose your own adventure type of game. Yeah, that's super massive. And Supermassive's doing it. So you're like, what do those two have to do in common? Well, we kind of got a sneak peek of this because if you actually remember from Stadia, I know we're bringing up Stadia again. This was originally a Stadia channel. I'm always going to bring it up. Uh, Thank you, Jeff, for killing it. You know, given all that, like Supermassive actually did the Stadia port of Little Nightmares 3 or Little Nightmares 2. So yeah, right. The Stadia, if y'all remember, Little Nightmares 2 looked beautiful on Stadia. And Supermassive did that port for Stadia. And so I guess we got like a little heads up. Like at the time, I didn't quite understand it, but now I do understand it. But yeah, that's always kind of bothered me because I always feel like it's totally okay for IP to travel from artist to artist. Like if y'all watch HBO series True Detectives, obviously the original writer, he did really awesome the first season. The second season I like, but it kind of like fell off. And now it's a new writer, right? Like I'm okay with IP moving around a little bit. Um, so what that said though is that still doesn't I just couldn't put my finger on it why this felt a little different. Now, y'all saw that trailer. I'm going to show you another trailer, right? And now this one is actually done by Tarsier Studios. So Extra Life, y'all know he is on it. I'm going to show you another trailer. And this is actually done by the creators of Little Nightmares. So y'all just saw the trailer of Little Nightmares 3, the franchise being done by Supermassive. You're now going to see another trailer. So I want you to kind of like, it's all like kind of the same universe, but I want you all to kind of take note of this. I think I have it. There we go.
Nothing lasts forever. I thought you were dead.
So let the PlayStation thing fool you. It will be available on all platforms. So that is Reanimal. All right, that is the original makers of A Little Nightmares universe. And if you look at it, it's like the same. I think it's the same universe. Um, and so if you notice, like one of the first things like that jumps out to me between the Little Nightmares role that we just saw, Little Nightmares 3, and Reanimal is the color, right? Like if you remember Little Nightmares, there's not a lot of color. It's like a dark plate. Like it's a nightmare, right? Like it is a dark, dark place, right? And when I see the new Little Nightmares, it's like I can see what's going on, right? Other thing that really jumps out, the characters, like the protagonists of Little Nightmares, whether we're playing as Mono or we're playing as Six or we're playing as the kid, whichever one, whichever one you want to take. These are like rugged kids. Like these aren't like let me play in the play park. If you go back and watch Little Nightmares 3, you see like it's a little bit more fun. And I don't think this is by coincidence, by the way, right? Little Nightmares, and y'all are like, "Purple, you're going, why are you going on Little Nightmares?" Because I love Little Nightmares. Okay. Uh, Little Nightmares, I think, is going in a different direction, like a more like friendly direction, right? And we kind of could see this, like there's a Little Nightmares mobile game if you did not know. And I could see them trying to make this into like some cartoon series or something, and it needs to be a little softer, right? Little Nightmares 2, if you recall, like the first boss, like that's a pretty traumatic scene, right? If you remember the DLC of the first game, that's a pretty traumatic scene that goes on at the end of that game. If you think about the context of what the original Little Nightmares are, it's dark, right? This is not really like it's a kids game, sure, but the themes and like just the tone is very mature, very dark. And I could see where Bandai Namco, right? Like Bandai Namco, Dragon Ball Z, Bandai Namco, right? Uh, they're trying to take it a different direction. I say that to say that my expectations for Little Nightmares 3 over the last 12 months when I first saw the trailer have kind of like lowered in a way. Like, and it's not as low as like Hellblade 2, like, right? That was pretty low. But right now it's like, I think it's gonna be okay. Like it's co-op, so it should be cool. But I'm not really sure what I'm gonna be expecting. Like, I don't really think the universe we're gonna go to is really like the universe that I know, like the Signal Tower, that universe. So if you've not played Little Nightmares, go play it. And if you have, you know what I'm talking about. And I think and if you listen to the podcast, it, like, takes it in a different direction, and I said that was actually my first indicator that something was up, was they were telling me too much about the world. Like, the thing about Little Nightmare, the thing about stuff that's scary is, like, what you don't know, right, is what's interpretation. If you think about what's scary when you're, like, small or an adult like myself, it's, like, the unknown, and I think that is really cool that they created in that universe. All right, so that's Little Nightmares. So let's switch to Reanimal, right? Reanimal, you got the pros in. You got Tarsier Studios back in there and doing their thing. And when I look at that trailer, you're looking at like it's not only dark, right? But you're looking at twisted, right? That's the crazy, right? Like this is like if you think about what is a nightmare when we think about a nightmare like that you're put into, you gotta have to little twistedness, and if you go back and watch that trailer, I please go do it, support the devs. You're gonna see, like, a lot of, like, weird movements, you're gonna see weird camera angles, you're gonna see, like, I don't know what's there, I think it's there. You're gonna see a lot of running. It's not just blah, 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 problem solving, like, that's what puzzles solving, which is what I see in Little Nightmares 3. And so Tarsier, I think, has the formula. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same universe. The thing that really jumps out at me is if you played the first two Little Nightmares, there's no voices in the game whatsoever. This one, there's voices, so like that adds a whole nother layer and dimension to it. I say all that to say, um, this is probably my most anticipated game next year. Reanimal, and it's super cool when you can, for me or for anybody, all you all know, like you see a game and you're like, I'm looking for or a movie or a book or a TV show, and you're like, I'm looking forward to that. That is Reanimal for me. Like, I am super looking forward to that. Don't get me wrong, looking forward to Orcs Must Die 3 or Orcs Must Die 4. I'm looking, but this one is what I'm really looking forward to. And it made me kind of think like, am I more loyal to a studio or am I more loyal to a franchise? And I think for me, I'm more loyal to a studio. I know that's weird. We talk about like console wars a lot, but for me, it's about studios. It's about the artists. We're going to be talking about the artists here in a second, later on in the show. But that's, hey, what's up, Web Dave? What's going on? Just talking Little Nightmares. Just talking little, and Urban. Hello, hello, Urban. Bonjour. Uh, yeah, more than Orcs Must Die. I know, I know. I'm looking forward to it more than Orcs Must Die. Um, but yeah, so that's what that's where we're at. I wanted to I had to talk. I know it's a huge controversy. Not really. Unless you're like in Little Nightmares. Like there's this controversy between Reanimal and Little Nightmares 3. And for me, I fall on the Reanimal side of things. Just because it's Tarsier. And that's why it's so important to like keep your original team together. Because once you lose it, it's hard to get that magic back in the bottle. And in Little Nightmares 3 versus Reanimal, and I don't think they're against each other, right? But I think next year is going to really put my theory to test, which is like, hey, here's this beloved franchise. Can you make it great? Like Tarsier was able to do that between Little Nightmares 1 and 2. Let's see what they can do at 3. And let's see how Tarsier can do with like creating a new IP. Like, is it really the studio? Y'all know I'm a fan of like Moon Studios, Supermassive, and Supermassive's doing this game, Gunfire Games, right? Obviously Nintendo, but in Tarsier, I mean, uh, People Can Fly. Like these are like my favorite studios of all time, and um, yeah, we'll see. Ubisoft won't be locked. I like the, like, I don't know. I have a weird taste in studios, but those are my favorite ones. So we'll see what happens. Um, with that, so that's my Little Nightmares conversation, right? I know we have some other stuff to talk about, right? We have a little bit of Black Myth Wukong to talk about, but I do want to show two more games to see if anybody's playing these games, if y'all think this would be something worthwhile playing. So like obviously I do free to play games on Sunday, right? I do Fall Guys or I do my own game stream. We're doing Still Wakes the Deep right now. But obviously we're gonna probably do Fall Guys or some other free to play game here pretty soon again. And I'm thinking about maybe streaming like a more premiere purple, a more premiere type of game. And when I say that, it's not like fun. It's still a game. But yeah, so this is one of the ones I saw was getting a lot of play and it looked interesting. And I'm showing you all this because it looked kind of cool to me. And I want to know if y'all played it. And if not, would y'all be open to playing it? All right. With that said, here's my next preview.
Hammond's Gulch before it had a name. Some believe naming a thing has power, changes it, makes it yours. Well, it changed into dog-eat-dog, man-killing man-land. But now, something else is doing the killing. Crawled out of that broken ground, fueled by hate, burning with rage, dripping fire. They named it Hellborn. But that ain't giving nobody power over it. Born of hell, it might just be. I aim to send it back.
So Hunt Showdown 1896. I don't know. I'm curious if anybody's ever played that. And I saw your comment there, extra live. I totally agree. I think it. Well, I don't totally agree. I think you're right. It's like two studios, kind of same thing. We'll see what happens with that. But yeah, Hunt Showdown. Have y'all played that? Like, I can't really find anybody who's played it, and I'm like, would anybody be willing to play that? Like I'm trying to think. So y'all know I play certain games on Sundays so I can get through the game, right? So I can play through the game. And I've gone through a lot of games that way, right? If it's in that like 3 to 8 hour time frame, I'll play it on Sunday. I know I'll beat it. It's probably not something I'll play on my own, just because like limited time. And this is like one of those games, like I'm like, I want to get it, but I don't know anybody who's playing it. It's like co-op. So you love to order 1886. I don't know. What's up, Lion? How are you? So yeah, I don't know. Like well, we may be playing this one. I don't know. We'll see. So there's that one, and there's another one here. And again, I'm if you can't tell, Holtz just kind of knows it, but there may be some new content coming out from the channel, and I'm trying to like gauge the interest here. So here's the other one. This one's not out yet. Trailer's still a little fuzzy. This trailer just launched today, and I want to showcase it.
Liberty, equality, fraternity, or death. The last, much the easiest to bestow. We knew that before the bacterium emptied the towns and cities. Before the herds were driven into the water, and houses burned so hot that the stone melted. Before the old order died. And now, you have come. And do you bring with you a new order? Or do you too possess the same gluttony that led to the end? I suspect we shall soon find out. It's not a game, Mom! It's my life!
That is Hunger. So if y'all cannot tell, that is another one of those PvEVP type of games, or PvE actually. I think that's just PvE. And so these are the type of games I'm thinking about starting to play a little bit more. Just gauging interest, trying to see around like who plays these. See if there's actually anybody who would play them. But yeah, it looks kind of dark. It looks kind of like you're trying to save something or not save something. I don't know. I saw it today and I was like, oh, that it's kind of like in the same vein as the other game that I just showed, Hunt Showdown 1896. And yeah, actually, I think it seems interesting too, right? It seems kind of like sold. D. Wilson? I don't know, like, so, like, I'm kinda, like, planning it out, um, and I just bring it up because I think in our little ecosystem, our echo chamber, or, our community, like, obviously, we talk about the big games. Black Myth Wukong is my next topic right now, so but, we talk a lot about these big games, but there's a lot of other games that I think have interesting communities as well, and have interesting gameplay loops, and I kind of want to explore some of these things. Y'all know I'm not really into some of the bigger titles like COD or any of the 2K or Madden. Y'all know I don't do any of the things like that. Uh and then there's like other big titles, right? Like I'm not really a Souls player. Um but there are other really fun experiences and I want to give those a try as well. So more to follow. Holtz, I think, hurt my plans earlier and think like I am thinking about doing like a more um premiere type of content. Like Ghostbusters would be on that list. Y'all know I love Ghostbusters. I know Callie Drew plays that, and I need to jump in. He just streams so late. Callie, you stream so late. But there's like all these games that are like kind of in that 30 to $40 range, full price on sale. They're like $20. And there's a team component to it, like a social component. I think they call these life service games. Yes, and I want to give it a try. So that's where that is. But with that said, let me make sure I kind of got through all the trailers I wanted to get through at this point of the show. Yes, I did have one more I do want to show. But with that said, Black Myth Wukong. All right. So this is actually shout out to both Extra Life, who's in chat. Shout out to Lens of Truth, who y'all seen come by a couple of times. Lens, I think, is streaming right now, if I'm not mistaken. And a couple of other people who reached out. I just mentioned those two because they might be in chat. And a couple of other people reached out about Black Myth. And so there let me see how I'm going to break this down. There's some controversy, there's like the actual gameplay, and then there's something else I want to talk about, right? So the controversy around Black Myth, and it's like two-sided at the moment, right? There's some controversy that about the studio itself has been supposedly uh somewhat misogynistic, right? And so I think it was like valid. I think it was solid journalism. Like I don't think they made this up. Like I think there's solid journalism. And if you told me like, hey, there's misogyny in China, in the tech industry in China, I I would kind of believe you because like there's like like that's not hard to like fathom. And I know it's not a laughing matter, but I think it's like question. It's like there's some people who are pushing back on this narrative by saying that it's like diversity. It's not true. It's blah blah blah. It's woke. Y'all know we talked about this woke gaming idea with the new Assassin's Creed Shadows game that's coming out in November. And I like to push back against this a lot, right? And so that's the setup, right? Like that I do want to talk about this. That's the setup. Uh so before we talk about that, because that's a very deep topic and I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about it. So prepare yourselves. Like this might sound like MM2K again. But before I talk about that, I do want to talk about the game. So with that said, like understanding like that's the controversy. I still played the game, right? I find myself a gamer. It's a game that I was looking forward to. It's a story I wanted to learn or hear about. And I'll probably do a video about this later on. But overall, like the visuals to me are still really well. It's interesting the further you get along in the game, like visually the game gets better looking. I don't know if that's because they sent a patch later on or something. But when I first played, it was a little choppy on PlayStation. Now it's like getting better as I play more. And um music wise, I love hearing like the more Eastern chords, like the Eastern music in the game. Um, gameplay is smooth. I like it. Someone asked me, like how to describe it. They said, is it like an Elden Ring? And it's not like an Elden Ring. It's not like a Souls game. To a degree, it's not. And they said, well, is it like Devil May Cry? And I only played Devil May Cry for like 20 minutes. Don't ask me why. It's like I like hack and slash. I just didn't like Devil May Cry. And I said, no, I don't think it's like that. Cause I would have played Devil May Cry if it was longer. So the best way I can explain it, and y'all who've played the game, please let me know what you think. Best way I can explain it is I feel like it is a Dynasty Warriors game, like but with a boss rush, like a boss rush. Like to me, that's like the closest way I can explain the game. Like it feels like what it felt like in Hyrule Warriors, like that's like a super powerful Link who can do all this stuff and can dodge and like fight, but you're doing it against bosses. Like and the bosses get harder. And to me, that is like the m- the merging of this game. I find that I enjoy it. Like, if y'all recall, I showed the DLC for the boss rush of Prince of Persia because I loved fighting those bosses in Prince of Persia. And so I'm okay with it. Story wise, I had to think about this. Like, I think I said that I want the game to make me want to read the actual source material, and it has in a different way. So I thought the game has story to it, it has lore, but I think it kind of um assumes that you already know a little bit about the source material to piece together like everything that's going on. So so yeah, I'm now wanting to read the source material so I can piece it together a little bit more. And yeah, I think like overall it's a solid game. Do I think it's game of the year? I know like 2 weeks ago I said I thought it was gonna be game of the year. Um I think it's gonna be someone's game of the year. I'll say it like that. I don't think a lot of markets are the US press is giving it a lot of praise. Chinese press definitely is. But regardless, I still think it's did what it had to do. Uh, and we're gonna talk about that in a little bit. But now this isn't super cohesive. But now I'm gonna talk about like the controversies of the game and what I think about it and what I think people are getting wrong about this, right? So for some reason, I've gotten a lot of suggestions on on my YouTube feed and in Twitter regarding woke gaming and how this game is like like how diversity journalists try to cancel out this game, right? And and they bring up other games also that they're like they'll bring up a consulting firm called Sweet Baby Inc. They'll bring up like other games like Saints Row or Forspoken or other or even the Assassin's Creed Shadow game that came out and they're like that's woke game, that's destroying gaming. And I think this misses the mark. Like I would really want to push back against this narrative. And if y'all have no idea what I'm talking about, kudos to you because I think that that part of gaming is very toxic. But for me, like if I was to say like, hey, we want diverse narratives. We want culturally rich stories. We want stories being told by the people. We wanted to hear about stories about people's background, things that are different, things that we haven't heard before. If we want to hear about the diversity of storytelling, having people tell the story they wanted to be told, having them champion their culture. Some people would say, Purple, you're talking woke game. Purple, you're sounding woke now, right? And I think this is really interesting because if you think about what I just said, if I just talked about diverse narratives, diverse culture, something that's different, something that really brings us into the protagonist so we can understand another culture, understand their stories. If I said that, right? People are like, yeah, that's they try to do that. It fails. You go woke, you go broke. That's what it says, right? That's what they say. But I'm like, no. Actuality is Black Myth Wukong is just what I just described. It's a different culture. It's a different narrative. You have an entire group, entire nation and culture who are championing this game in that region in the world. Like this is number one Steam game of single player Steam game of all time, right? They got to tell the story that they wanted to be told. They got to bring us into their world. So much so that you have many gamers saying you should play the game with Chinese voice acting. It's that good. You should do it that way. But we don't call this woke, right? Right? We call things that are woke. We call things that are about like women, queer people, black people, people who speak English different, Hispanic. Like that's woke. But this, something that's literally a same, just switch the adjectives to describe the people. This isn't woke. Like, no one's saying that. As so much so that they're saying that people who are criticizing the studio who made the game, which I said is like kind of plausible to believe, that China, right? This is the same country that up until recent memory had a one child per family rule, and you actually had young girls being kidnapped because their families didn't want girls in the family, right? This is the same country, okay? This is tech industry. Let me tell you, like someone who's been in the tech industry, who's actually studied the tech, like the tech industry is actually somewhat misogynistic most places around the world. Like, I know, newsflash. People at Google didn't walk out for anything, right? Just newsflash. So, oh, by the way, like the biggest at the time independent gaming company in the world at the time had a CEO who got in trouble with this. Do y'all remember? That's what brought around Activision Blizzard and the share price dropping. So when I hear like something about this in China, I'm like, I believe it. I think it's warranted. And I think that's good journalism to uncover that. But there's a narrative that says like, no, they're trying to cancel it out. This is wrong. Like I heard so many big time content creators saying like, this was garbage journalism. This is woke journalism that, look, they are actually trying to bring down the game. And I'm like, I don't think that's what that means, right? Like, no one cares about harassment at gaming companies until someone commits suicide. Then it gets serious. All of a sudden, it's like, oh my goodness, Bobby Kodak's bad. But if you actually remember, those allegations against Bobby Kotick were happening all the way back from 2012. But no one, then what happened? 2012 led into 2014, and then we had Gamergate, and then you saw what happened, right? But then all of a sudden, when ABK deal needs to get through, hey, Microsoft's going to clean it up. Bobby Kotick's a bad person. It's like, yeah, well, where was that energy before before we had the suicides, right? Where was that energy before people had a lot of trauma? And so, like, I'm pushing back on this because I'm like, the same thing. Black Myth Wukong. All right, now this is they're coming from China, right? Black Myth Wukong is a celebration of Chinese culture, Chinese history, celebration of Chinese evolution in gaming. It's a celebration of a lot of things in China. So much so, if you actually go look at the marketing for Black Myth Wukong in China, it is super, super nationalistic for China. So much so that unless you gave Black Myth Wukong 100, like I'm not even saying a 90, unless you gave that thing 100 on the rating, they think that you're like tearing the game apart. It's China. Like, of course. Well, no, China's a beacon of freedom of press. I think the F not. So this is what's funny to me because everybody's like defending this game against the wokeness by using like Chinese, like, and I'm not saying like Chinese people are bad. I'm just saying like to think that the Chinese media machine is not propaganda is probably, I don't know, to turn a blind eye towards that. So much so that, you know, we had some people in the community who got free codes from this game to review it, to play it. But guess what? They couldn't talk about COVID. Like, who would talk about COVID anyway? You know what I mean? They couldn't even talk about the Chinese gaming industry. They couldn't talk about, and the thing that everybody celebrated was like, yeah, they can't even talk about feminist politics. I'm sorry. Feminist politics in the United States is a lot different than in China. Like I said, did y'all not remember what I just said about 5 minutes ago? That China literally had a one-child rule and you literally have families. This isn't like made up. Like this is actually little girls flooded the Chinese orphanage system and little girls were flooding the missing child report center and little girls were showing up murdered on the side of the street. This is that China. Okay. I don't want to beat around the bush about it because I think it is so weird that you have people in the United States, like this country, the Western country, who are like championing like what is clearly to me like lipstick on a pig, trying to dress it up. And that's not saying the game is bad. Like I just said, the game is actually pretty fun. But to try to say like, yo, I'm just bringing attention to some like potentially things that you need to be aware of while we championing this, I think that's totally okay. Like I said, no one cares until someone commits suicide. Then we're like, oh, suicide's bad. Blah, 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 blah. But if we talk about mental health or anything else, we talk about women's equal pay, we talk about like any other thing, that's called woke. Even though the whole point about Black Myth Wukong is extremely woke by that definition. It's talking about another culture. It's talking about something that's diverse. It's talking, let me be very clear, about something that's not white and male in the United States. But we don't call it woke because the only reason I can think of is because we have this hierarchy of identities that we like to say, like, hey, if it's this identity, it's not woke. But if they talk about it and it's this identity, it is woke. I told you I was going to get controversial today. Maybe it's not controversial. I'm just saying like how I see it. So yes, the game is cool, but I also think it's warranted. So much so, like, if you don't know what I'm talking about, there was an article that came out from Screen Rant. Screen Rant, I know it's a movie review article. The article came out from Screen Rant. And in it, the author of the article said, like, hey, the game is beautiful. The story is not all there. The gameplay is fun. There's some technical hiccups. And then she said, also, there's a lack of diversity and inclusion in the game. And she explained what that meant. So this is actually what spurred all of this, right? And this is an intern, by the way. This ain't like no Pulitzer Prize winning artist, right? Writer, right? And this is not like the Washington Post. This is literally like Screen Rant. And people in the gaming community took the fact that she said a lack of diversity and inclusion and ran with it. They said it's a game about rabbits and foxes and wolves and bears and tigers fighting each other. Of course, there's no diversity. Trying to make the person seem like they're an idiot, but in actuality, the writer, if you actually go read the article, actually, if y'all have time, definitely go look up Screen Rant, Black Myth Wukong article. She explains that she acknowledges its mythical characters. What she actually is talking about is something different. She says, given the negative publicity, basically, that Game Science, the studio behind Black Myth Wukong has, specifically the fact that it may be misogynistic, she said, essentially, there's no female characters in the game. Now, there's a few, but there's not that many. So everybody's like, well, of course, it's based upon Chinese mythology. It's based upon Journey to the West. But the writer actually says there's important characters in Journey to the West who are women that the game omits. Which, oh, by the way, if you had actually added at least one of those characters who helps the main character, acts as like a voice of conscience to the main character, it probably would have helped the story a little bit. I'm just going to say, everything she wrote, I 100% agree with. And so this thing is not so much about the controversy that's happening in China. My talk isn't so much about the article. My talk is really about why is it that gamers have such an allergic, and when I say gamers, I mean the zeitgeist to a degree. Why do they have such a allergic reaction to the words diversity and inclusion? Allergic reaction to, man, I'm sweating. Allergic reaction to certain communities, an allergic reaction to when certain heroes or something, and we say, yo, that hero is queer, or that hero is a woman, or that hero's black, or that hero is name your XYZ other ethnicity. Why do we have that allergic reaction? But then we go back and we look at, hey, it's a Chinese character. Like, that's not woke. It's the same thing. They're just switching out one adjective for another. The only thing I can think of is if we have a hierarchy of identities. The zeitgeist in the community has a hierarchy, and there are clearly bad actors. Like I said, I don't think the writer said anything wrong at all. Capital G Gamers. I see you there. Extra life. Does it mean you challenge these regions? What regions? Do I give the game 100? Oh, do I give the game 100? Hey, Wilson, that's a good one. I don't know if I give it 100. I think there's some issues. Like, right, the story's not as solid as I would have liked in a game. I think there's some UI issues in the game, and I think there's some performance issues in the game. But because I didn't say anything about performance or UI, I did talk about story, and I think if I say story is 25% of the game, I think they nailed it by half. So I give it probably a 90. That's really good, by the way. Like, a 90 is really good. I don't know if I give it like 100. I don't even think I put Tears of the Kingdom at 100. But I think it's a great game. Like, I think you should go play it. But I think it's worth mentioning as well. Like, yo, there's some issues with the game. Like would it made if any difference? Like, if Black Myth Wukong came from North Korea, would we be like, yo, it's like, of course we would talk a little bit about North Korea. Like, where did the game come from? We would say a whole bunch of stuff. No, it blows my mind. Like, it blows my mind how the community of gamers turned on this person, this author so much. It's just I had to say something. I had to say something. Like, I feel like it's weird. It's weird. As an adult woman, I have to talk. Like, people ask me like, why do you talk to gamers? They're weird, and they don't you remember their sexes? And I'm like, no, they're not. I have a community that's not like that. And then I see this stuff, and I see some of the biggest content creators. I'm talking like millions of subscriber content creators, 500,000 like people who are like who you think would know better, and they're like, yeah, it's woke journalism. I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, my viewers on this channel dropped like 5. I'm okay though. I'm letting y'all know where I stand on this. Like I said, I still think the game's worth playing. I think it's worth criticizing a story where you can criticize it. Like, hey, they didn't follow the source material fully. I think that's worth it. But I think it's also a clear celebration of like China shifting the gaming narrative, right? China put out a AAA like that. That's huge. Like, that's so huge. It's actually going to drive my next topic. I think the game is fun. Like, I'm playing it. Like, I'm enjoying it. It actually pulled me from X Defiant. You can ask Ambi. Ambi's like my person who I run with X Defiant. I probably play X Defiant maybe 30 minutes to an hour each day now, from like 7 to 8 to now like I play. I probably didn't play it that much. I probably play X Defiant probably like 30 to 45 minutes a day now, and I play Black Myth Wukong probably 2 to 3 hours. So yeah, I probably played it 8 to 9 hours since Monday. And I find myself wanting to go read the story, read all the different things. So I think both things can be right? I think the game can be great, and I think criticism can be leveled. And I don't think you have to necessarily bring in politics to describe either one of those things, right? I don't think it has to be like journalists or woke or try and handle a game. I do think it's important to bring these topics to light. And I don't think it's like worth like people cyberbullying individuals because they brought something to light. Like I said, no one cares until someone gets killed, right? And I think when that happens, like, we miss something along the way. And I look at ABK as a perfect example. No one cared about Bobby Kotick. Actually, they were attacking the people who were complaining. And then all of a sudden we find out that not one, but a couple of people died at ABK because of workplace bullying and harassment. And we find out that Bobby Kotick turned a blind eye. And then we said, oh, Bobby Kotick's bad. Like, no, I think it's like worth investigating. If there is like a misinformation translation, so be it. And also I think like if you're someone who automatically is saying like you see a character, you see a game, you see a story, like I think Assassin's Creed Shadows is a perfect example of this. Like, that's actually based upon a true person in real life. You know what I mean? And they're actually getting the writers, they're getting, like, the historians who actually know and using some literary, historical knowledge to write that game. That's why I'm actually excited about it, to bring it to life, to bring that story to life. And all of a sudden now we have, like, Japanese samurai experts everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, it's weird. I didn't know we had so many samurai, like, not even Japanese samurai experts. It's like 16th century Japanese samurai experts, right? Like telling us like he can't be a samurai. It's like you haven't even played the game. And on top of that, like the foremost experts on samurais are even saying like, yo, the dude is probably a samurai based upon like what it meant to be a samurai. But they're like taking it into like I don't even know, and they're automatically saying the game's like woke. Like that's the thing. Like if we tear down every game, guess what? Gaming industry is going to collapse. Like, you don't believe me? Go look at the 19 like, I was around in the early 80s when the game industry collapsed. It was weird. Like, one day you went to, like, Sears and, Woolworths, and you saw these all these gaming things there, and the next year you didn't. Like, that's what it looked like. It was very jarring experience back then to say, like, "I want that video game." Like, this is before Nintendo, and you would go around and there were stores and they were showing video games, and it was, like, cool. It wasn't even cool. It was just, like, different. It was interesting. We hadn't seen something like that. And then the next year, you don't see any of it. Like, back then, I didn't even know what was going on. It was just like, yo, it's like there it's not there. I was asking to play games, and now I'm asking for what did I ask for back then? Like Polly Pocket, or I don't know, Cabbage Patch. I think that's what it was big back then. You know? Like the game industry can collapse. You know what I mean? Like it's not immune proof. I know Extra Life. I totally agree. So I had to say something. I had to say something Extra Life. But the game can still, like I said, the game can still be good and it's still worthwhile to bring attention to some topics. Um, so there's that. If you wanna challenge me, let me know. Come on the show. I know I would. And I do want to talk about Extra Life. You're preach, brother. Preach. Like I said, y'all may get a chance to hear Extra Life. Hear his gaming journey here in a few weeks. I'm looking forward to it for sure. All right, so I do want to pivot. I do want to celebrate that the game did come from China, and this does create a very interesting situation. Because gaming can basically be broken interactive entertainment gaming. So I'm not talking tabletop or a couple of others, but I'm talking about like interactive entertainment. It can be broken down into basically four segments, right? You have mobile gaming, you have console gaming, you have PC gaming, and then you have like other, which is where like VR would land. It's like where cloud gaming, it's where like NFT gaming, like all that stuff is like in other. And then you have like a totally different bucket that's like gambling, casino, and that's like totally different bucket. And so China has really dominated the mobile gaming market, like Tencent. And in the gaming world was like kind of okay with that. Like I know we like to cherish King as like a Western studio that did really well or does really well. But when you compare it to Tencent, it's like nothing. Like Tencent like owns the mobile market. And so and for the longest, gaming investors, gaming studios, gaming like Illuminati, if you will, were like, that's where China stays. Like Western studios in Japan have the other two on lock. And recently we've seen some reports come out, and Estadia, if y'all know him, really smart dude, that guy is. You know, he's done some research about how console gaming is declining, which is true, right? A lot of console gamers are migrating to PC. And you actually have seen like certain companies like starting to prioritize the PC experience, like I think Capcom most recently. Probably starting to put more emphasis there. Still understanding where console is, but like kind of saying console's tapped out. And so much so that this is like actually like why I believe Microsoft, and I'm about to make a very, very controversial statement here in a second, but like Microsoft is kind of retreating from the console space and leaning into the mobile space, as we see with the purchase of ABK, and leaning into the PC as we see with the growth of PC Game Pass. But China, this game particularly, this is the power of China, right? This game particularly has like revitalized PlayStation 5 sales in the region. So much so that they're saying that this is like a significant boost to PlayStation sales. I don't think they sold like 10 million consoles, y'all. What I am saying is I think they sold a significant number of consoles, and a significant number of consoles means you have impact. And if you have impact, that means you have another revenue base. And if you have a larger console install base, okay, that means that you now will start to prioritize that type of customer a certain way. Makes sense, right? And why I say this is really interesting is because now basically the entire console growth in China is really centered around PlayStation and probably Nintendo, the new Nintendo, like Xbox, nowhere to be found. And this is probably the most controversial thing. I'm gonna go out on a limb, and y'all are gonna think I'm crazy here. Hey, that PlayStation gamer, what's up? Uh I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that I think this is the last Xbox generation. I know I predict a lot of stuff, and I said that to someone earlier today, and they're like, "No, you're going too far." And I'm like, "No, I don't think so." And I promise this will be my last topic, and then I'll open up the phones. Um, like I think y'all know, like I was a business consultant, business analyst type of consultant, and in the military, I was what they call air defense artillery officer, and a lot of exercises we had to do was stuff called like red team, blue team. And in that exercise, I was always the red team, meaning like I was always the adversary. Like I always had to understand intel and how would the adversary think. And so like, you're like, what do those two have to have in common? It's actually the same framework I use in military intelligence, the same intel I use in business analysts. And that is like, at the end of the day, like in the military, you have a few things. You have like high value targets, you have like how high value sites, you have like what does it mean to win a war? You actually have a couple of different ways to win a war. And in business, it's actually pretty simple. It's like you have to hit profitability. If not today, tomorrow. So sometimes you're looking at growth. So revenue growth, like Amazon for the longest wasn't really worried about profitability. Some people are looking just at like introducing a new product to like test a market to see if something exists. So like if you think about Tesla when they first came out, it was really about just testing the market, and then they like went full in. And Xbox for the longest time, in my opinion, Microsoft with Xbox has used Xbox as like what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like a pilot. Right? Like I think Xbox for the beginning, like first 10 to 15 years of Xbox's existence, it was used mostly as like an experiment, if you will. But at some point, Microsoft decided to invest a lot in Xbox. And this is why the title is like Xbox's Faustian bargain. Because I think it was a Faustian bargain for sure. And so Microsoft is now invested in Xbox quite considerably. And in my opinion, Xbox has no real good solutions at the moment. If you're a true like console Xbox gamer, and I don't want to split that up, and for some of y'all it don't matter, but I do want to do the controversial conversation right now. And the reason I say that is because the console market is shrinking unless you're in China or in some markets that are not the United States, right? It just so happens that Xbox's strongest markets are Western markets. So these markets are actually where Xbox is like all the consoles are flatlining. We're seeing the growth in other markets. And in those other markets, like I said, it's PlayStation and Nintendo. So when you think about growth, it's not there. On top of that, when you start to think about like how you're performing versus the previous generation, it's arguable that Xbox is literally like around 30 to 40% behind the previous generation. So not only is it like not growing where the growth is, it's actually declining where they're the biggest market. Cool, you say. But you're like, purple, they're coming out. They told us they're coming out with something in 2027, 2028. Okay, let me tell you. when you're a business analyst, like when they come and tell you like, "Hey, why don't you come in? Tell us what we can do in our business." They don't actually tell you that. They tell you exactly the problem. You're just finding the proof for their answer. But anyway, you always look at the market leaders. And if anything, this console generation, we found out that Nintendo extended the life of their console, right? We actually are seeing this also in cell phones, and we're seeing this in a couple other things like people extending the life of a generation by like a year, 18 months. And so I could definitely see this console generation being extended by like a year, 18 months, which puts us like 2027, early, like mid 2028. Okay, like 3 to 4 years from now. But you're like, Purple, it's too big. They just invested all this money. Okay, I'm coming to you. I'm coming to you. Back in 2013, I remember this now because like I was an investor in Microsoft back then. Back in 2013, Microsoft was worth rough around 200 to $300 billion. A lot of money. I totally hear you. And they purchased a phone maker back then. So they had the Windows Phone, but they purchased another phone maker. That phone maker was Nokia. All right. 3 years after purchasing Nokia, they canceled the Windows Phone. They no longer made anything about it. They disbanded the team. So that should tell you how fast things can change, right? And if they disbanded it 3 years later, you can almost guarantee that they like stopped. They made the decision like half a year before. 2.5 years. Next year is Microsoft's, and I say Microsoft's probably make or break year with the Xbox. It's my opinion. It's totally my opinion. And like I said, I don't think the Xbox brand will die, right? I think Xbox has exactly what they want. But the console segment is what I think potentially I don't know why they would make another console, right? And the reason I say that is because right now, if you think about it, they have the perfect excuse to say like, "Hey, your console will live indefinitely. Any game that we make, you'll be able to get. You'll still be able to get Game Pass. You'll still be able to do whatever." Why? Because every Xbox Series S and X is also a cloud gaming platform. So if you're losing customers buying your console, right? And oh, by the way, the majority of your customers who are buying that console bought the cheaper console. You're losing customers year over year. You're not expanding where consoles are. And oh, by the way, the console market is basically dominated by two other players, and you have no way of continuing to gain market share. And oh, by the way, where you're actually spreading, we're growing your subscription base, your Game Pass is actually on PC. Like if you actually notice, they always talk about their PC Game Pass subscriber growth. Then why do you need a console? Like you actually have exactly what you want. You have the live service games. You have the best Western developed mobile game in Candy Crush. You have the best live service shooter in Call of Duty. You have some of the best PC live service games in World of Warcraft and Diablo, which both were showcased at the Gamescom showcase. Right? You have enough IP to just make other games and put them on other platforms. Y'all know I said like, hey, by the way, just let me put this up there really quick. Y'all know I see that at the bottom. That also caused a lot of consternation earlier today or earlier this week. That little thing, this Xbox former exclusive going to PlayStation 5. Yeah, this is going to continue to happen, right? You already are putting stuff other places. Why do you make a console? Why don't you just cut the Band-Aid now? Why do you do the R&D for a console when at the end of the day, if you want to reach people who are already in your ecosystem, you say, hey, play cloud gaming. That's what you do. Why do you make another? Like, there's no reason in my mind that you make another console. So, yeah, I agree, Rouser. It does. I will be playing the Diablo 4 expansion, just to say that. I will be playing it. Like I said, it has nothing to do with like Xbox because I don't think it's an Xbox decision. I think it's a Microsoft decision, right? And I think, and so okay, so you're like Purple, fine. Tell us what you think is make or break for them. What I think is make or break for them, and why I think this is a dire situation, is because in business, especially in big tech companies, you look for quarter over quarter growth. You look for actually year over year growth. So you look like, hey, in our May quarter last year, we did this. And in our May quarter this year, we grew this, right? In our December Christmas holiday quarter, we did this. This year, we did this, and we showed a growth. Usually for big tech companies like Microsoft, Google, Apple, you want to see something in the 15 to 20% year over year growth, right? And if you're Microsoft, you're getting that. AI, you're getting that through your cloud business, you're getting that through your office business, you're doing really well. The gaming business, you're not doing that. So last year, what we saw, and I say this, and this is the last point I'll make about this, and then I'll open up the lines. Last quarter, like what they call it April through June quarter, that's Microsoft's fourth quarter. Last year, Microsoft did XYZ amount of money. That was without the ABK deal. That's without the ABK stuff. This year, they had about a 52% growth. 51% of that is actually considered ABK. So that means like actually Microsoft only grew by 1%. But if you have to also realize that in between last June and this June, Microsoft increased the price of Game Pass. So that's with the price increase in Game Pass. Also, what no one also mentions is that 1% outside of ABK also includes putting 4 titles from the Xbox exclusive catalog on the PC catalog, on the Sony PlayStation catalog, and also putting 2 titles on the Nintendo Switch catalog. So you tapped in already to 2 networks, and you only got 1% growth, right? So this year, what have they done? Well, they've done another price increase, right? Because they're gonna have to show growth again. So they've done another price increase. So we got you on that one. They're actually going to present two pretty marquee titles, right? I think Call of Duty is going to come out, but they did Call of Duty the year before, Modern Warfare 3. So you got to understand who's going to do better, Modern Warfare 3 or Black Ops 6. You be the judge. I think Black Ops 6 will outperform it. But that also comes in after you did this huge Starfield hype that kind of like did mediocre. Like Diablo's going to do well, right? I don't doubt Diablo's going to do well, but this is where you think about like where does the growth come from if you're Xbox? And this is why I say they're in their dire straits. I think they're gonna have to put more games on the PlayStation catalog, which is great for PlayStation. More games on the Nintendo Switch catalog, which is great for them, right? But I don't think it's gonna be enough because I don't think ABK can continue to perform like ABK did, right? I think if y'all remember that whole time early in the pandemic when Bobby Kotick got in trouble, like ABK was not doing that well. And I think those problems still come up. And yeah, I just don't think Microsoft can keep up. I don't think they can, or Xbox can keep up with the growth that Microsoft needs them to keep up. And in order for them to really go the direction they want to go, they already have what they need, right? They already have their install base is not going to get any bigger with the new Xbox. And given that their Xboxes currently can do cloud gaming, I think you're gonna get cloud gaming like going forward. I think you're gonna hear about this. Like you're gonna start hearing about this. That your current Xbox generation, I actually think I already know what the messaging is gonna be. The current Xbox generation is infinite. They're gonna say something like that. They're gonna start to hint at like delays in the production of the current gen Xbox, and then they're gonna start to say like you can play wherever you want to play. Like our games are everywhere. So you can play it on your own hardware, you can play it on your own cloud devices, you can play it on other consoles if that what you can play it all there. You can also play it on our consoles that we already produce. But I just don't see what another console does strategically for them. And that's why I say if I was advising them, and I know the people who kind of do, I don't know. I think this is the last Xbox generation. All right, that's it. That's all I got, Sour Blow. What's up? Right as I get to that. Oh my god, Ron Susher. 846 where I sell my shades. Ron Susher, you told me 2025, Ron. Yo, hey Lo-Fi, what's going on? All right. So here we go. Let me put this. Let me invite guests now. All right. If y'all want to come on. If not, I gave y'all the controversy. I gave you all the like hot takes. I gave you the my thoughts of Black with Wukong. Like if you like hack and slash, if you like Dynasty Warriors, if you like boss rushes, potentially get it. Wow, that was fast. That was fast.
Hello. Yo. What's up, everybody? How you doing, Perp?
Hey, what's going on?
So, I mean, this is basically what I've been saying since Cloudy Thoughts. This is it. This is exactly what I was saying. This is the last generation. But I think differently. I think they're gonna keep pushing a useless console on you when they're gonna do Project Keystone, and they're gonna keep just pushing off a cheap console on you as long as they can for people that still want to buy it.
So you think Extra Life said that? They said I think they'll maybe another Series S, like a cheap one.
Something, but I don't know. It's just going to be something
why?
to sell you.
See, the
just
reason
'cause
why
they can.
the reason why I feel so nervous about that, like that sentiment, is
I think they're going to do it just to prove to the public, like, hey, see, it's time to give up the console. Like,
maybe.
You know what I mean?
I just remember, like, they did this with the window. They bought Nokia in 2013. In 2016, they said we're stopped making phones. That was 3 years. We are technically we are still further out. The next Xbox console, if it was going to come out, is still more than 3 years out. So I think there's enough time for them to like realize, like, why do we need to make it? Like, if you're already Microsoft, right? Microsoft is software, like, right?
Sure.
You're already there. You already have the install base that you have. You already can put, like, Game Pass can already be played on Samsung TVs, can be played on Fire Sticks, will be probably played on Apple here pretty soon. Mm-hmm. Why do you put out something?
I'm just saying, Project Keystone.
Project Keystone.
No,
I mean, maybe whoever has a gigantic game collection will become very rich once fiscal is 100% out of the door. TK9. Make it a premium hardware, more expensive, add certain features to try to sell it to people. I mean, if you try to do that, see, the problem with trying to make it a premium hardware thing is because it's the same thing that Google runs into, right? Google only recently started making premium phones, right? They were always like a step below iPhone and Samsung. And then it wasn't until like Samsung sued them, right, that they said, okay, like we now have to make our own phones. But if you're a Windows maker, why make your own computer when you have Dell, you have all these other gaming PC people making their own hardware? You're Microsoft. You do not do well in hardware, right? Like, I
like what are you doing?
Like, you don't, like, that's not what they do well.
Yeah.
So why would you go again, whether it's a premium experience, or it's any experience, you don't do that well. You already have your install base. Like,
that's exactly why I see them making these type of deals with Sony. Like, the money's in selling the games, not the consoles. That's where, like, the path forward is. And however many avenues you need to open up, whether that's on your competitors, it doesn't matter. You just need to get the game sold.
I agree. But my thing is, and I see Extra Life there. My thing is, what does another, like, because I hear what people are saying, like, hey, you put your console out there again. But obviously the console isn't selling, right? It's not reaching your previous levels of console sales, right? It's actually,
and with inflation, what is the next, like, if another generation, what is that going to look like?
What does it look like? And the majority of the people bought your cheaper, between the X and the S. The majority of the people bought the S. I'm not saying the vast majority, but I am saying the majority of people bought the S. So that tells me, like, you can only do so much on the premium side, right? Unless you price this thing so premium that you're now talking about a PC, which then you're talking about a group of people who will just go buy the PC.
Yeah.
Or you're talking about it on the cheaper side, right? So we already know, like, Keystone's a cloud thing. I would still say the install base for cloud gaming is already there, whether you're on a smart TV, a Fire Stick, Amazon Chromecast, whatever the new one's called, Apple TV, Roku TV, all of those will have Game Pass. So you're not going to really gain a huge install base by selling your individual Keystone. So then the only thing that remains is, hey, let me put out a cheaper console, which, oh, by the way, the number one console maker for hardware, right, is coming out with their own console next generation 2024 in Nintendo. So why would they go get your console versus Nintendo's console when you're putting everything software-wise on a PlayStation, on a Nintendo, on everything else? What do you get for producing another console? Like, what sense does that make?
I don't know. I can't answer that for you. I don't know.
When it first came out, VR under the Christmas. Oh my god, here's VR. I also bought a PS5. You buy everything. Like he buys everything.
But I mean, they may stop making consoles, maybe. But I don't know. I have a feeling that they're gonna push them well past it. They're gonna give you some inferior.
If it was Xbox, but that's what. And I see we have another guest here. If it was just,
and I'm not making fun of Microsoft or anything. Like I'm not anti-Microsoft. I just think that they're smarter than they look. When it comes to stuff.
No, but I'm just saying, like, past experience with the Windows Phone gives me some pause.
Oh
right?
yeah, the Zune,
the Windows Phone. Most of the
hardware.
Microsoft Store, right? like it gives me pause for us to be like, yeah, they're gonna do great in hardware when the market for the hardware they're trying to sell is shrinking. They're not in the regions where that console sales are growing. Yeah. And oh, by the way, they're selling less and less generation over generation. And on top of that, given all of that stuff I just said, if you do produce a lower, like you're having issues with the lower version now of your console. So you're going to tell me you're going to do it again? I'm just saying that.
You think their move is mobile?
I think their move is software.
Yeah.
I think that is their move. Like their move is like, how can we get our software the most places? We need to cut costs. Like having a console, they sell those at a loss, if you remember, right? So why are you even selling it? You know what I mean? Like, why are you even like? It doesn't make sense to me. If your money makers are going to be on the mobile side and on the PC side, and we know that because that's what they've been reporting the last year. They continually have said, yo, PC Game Pass keeps growing, and we keep seeing growth in our King saw growth, and they're talking about a mobile store, right? What that tells me is like they're not saying any type of investment in consoles. The last thing is, and Holtz, I promise I'll get to you here in a second. The last thing is when the investors, I don't know if anybody listened to the investor call most recently. Investors asked about the ABK deal. At the time, Amy Hood, the CFO of Microsoft, now this is a senior person, okay? She made a comment that she said, we have seen the growth that we have expected and we're on the right trajectory. She said something, but she didn't say anything for people who actually follow like investor calls. Like she didn't tell about a goal. She didn't tell about any type of metric. She just gave an overall kind of like executive answer. Yeah, executive answer, because the investor call is literally a report card for the exec staff of a company. That's what she did. She gave a very basic answer. This week, when Indiana Jones went on to PlayStation 5, we heard Phil Spencer yesterday say, yo, we have to keep up with the expectations of Microsoft. We are punching at the ceiling for subscriptions in Game Pass, which means they are not keeping up.
Yeah.
The GM, the one who has a profit and loss statement for his division, Phil Spencer, just told you he's not keeping up. They have tried so many different strategies to try to do this. This is like their last strategy, right? Like their one trump card to sell, to say, come to our ecosystem because you can only get this experience on our ecosystem. They have just said, no, we have to go to other ecosystems. Again, why do you produce like what strategic hey I always get fast at when I'm so hyped up.
So why do you think this is? Is it they can't put out games fast enough? Is it that the games are subpar? What?
Why do I think they can't sell consoles?
No, I mean, why do you think this is that they're well, sure.
That I think they can't sell because they're a big tech company and they don't know what fun is for the majority. They know what fun for some people is. They know what fun for some people. But there's another thing, and Lo-Fi, I got to bring the Holt on here in a second.
Sure.
But I'll say this. I think gaming is entertainment. Okay. And big companies, tech companies particularly, have to show profit, like that thing where I said, hey, last June we made this much money, this June we made more money, right? That trend continues to go up. But in entertainment, it's like, name your favorite artist. Let's go with Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift doesn't get, like, we don't look at Taylor Swift sales and are like, yo, she has to do better in 2025 than she did 2024, which is better than 2023. No, we say like these are some of her best albums. She made this multi-platinum. She makes hits, but it's not like it has to be sequential like any entertainment, right? We don't look at other forms of entertainment in this same lens because entertainment at the end of the day is an art form. And so I think when you put, this is why I said my issue has never been with Xbox. It's always been with Microsoft. When you put the art form on this metric that forces the hand of the artist, you're going to be left with a subpar product. And I think that's something that like Nintendo has had to learn the hard way. So they space out their IPs, they space out what they need to do. I think PlayStation is learning this. This is why PlayStation is starting to emulate Nintendo, right? That's why they have two CEOs, one to take care of like kind of the more the gaming side of things, and one CEO to kind of do what Nintendo's done like with their IP. Right? This is why 2K, what's it called? 2K does what they do. Like they don't release Grand Theft Auto unless that thing's ready to go. I think this is learned. And I don't think gaming or entertainment works in the world of corporate America. And the proof is in the playing. Boom! Boom! Boom!
Wow. You guys didn't have to pay for any of that.
There we go. All right, let me pull in.
So look, before I
ahead.
go, I'm just gonna say I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I am a purveyor of information that you can take or leave as you please. And I'm just gonna leave you. I'm gonna leave you with this thought that your telephones aren't listening to you, your TVs aren't watching you, and Black Myth Wukong is not spyware that you've installed on your computer from the Chinese Communist government. See you later.
There you are. Lo-Fi chopped a bomb. We're gonna have to talk about that eventually. Holtz, what's going on?
There's a reason why I've turned my webcam off.
What's that?
Just in
Chinese
case-
government?
Yeah, just it made me laugh. What he just said. Look, I'll find mentions. I'm like, oh, it's a conspiracy theory. But anyway, so I think Microsoft's doing well by not bringing forward the idea of a future console, because the way I've seen it in console space previously is I believe the Wii U was an amazing console, very innovative, and it was very competitive, and it had an amazing first party exclusive. And people just went, oh, well, it's the third tier in the console space of power. Who gives a crap? And then Nintendo went, okay, we can't carry on this projection going forward because, gamers have already spoke their mind. Let's just create a Switch and port these games over. And then Nintendo sold the same games that was on Wii U to a next generation console portable hybrid, and it worked for them. So I think what Xbox is doing is, wow, we've got the franchises and we've got the user base. Okay, we'll sell it to them now, but going forward, we can port it to everywhere else. Next gen consoles from other companies, we can put it on cloud services, and it's just the right way to go forward. And just let the Xbox brand die. Just have the Game Pass ideal going forward. I think that's an amazing way to tackle it. And I know a lot of gamers going, well, I love hardware. How much do you really love hardware? You're paying for a budget device at best, X technology, like 3, 4 years out of date, and you're still pretending that you're a high end gamer. No. How about you just move it to services that give you the big, huge performances and terminology that you know and you love? For example, like a RTX 4080 on GeForce Now, or a this and this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it make like to me when like I said, I told you all that about my business background, about my military background, because it's like how I look at Intel. And when I do the Intel analysis on this, like when I look at the business case for a new console, and we have a consumer group, the most demanding consumer group is the one that will go buy a $2,000, $3,000 PC. Okay, let them go buy it. Right? The user group that Microsoft has right now that they care about, right? It's clearly as day, they don't care about the users that are like, we need this game. They didn't get Black Myth Wukong, they didn't get Larry. Like, they're prioritizing the group that has lower needs. And the group
Well,
that has go ahead.
well, now they are, but you
Yeah,
see,
no.
there was a time like when they brought the Series X out, and they was like, says S and X. They were like, "Oh yeah, do you know that the Series X got 12 teraflops?" At that time, they were pushing a narrative that Sony was doing. Like 12 teraflops was an amazing performance, and they were like, "Well, do you know PlayStation 5 only got 10?" But then they didn't realize that the key to a system is optimization and a huge library. That was the key. But they were also following a narrative that was so old school by saying, which goes back to like Nintendo and the Saturn, NES versus Saturn, so that they thought that that's what people wanted, and they'll run out and buy it. But now people are like, what's the difference between them extra little flops if you haven't got the titles? So I think what Xbox is doing is, let's save our titles, sell it to as many um, ecosystems as we can, and monopolize on that. And then people are like, oh well, if Microsoft give up on Xbox, and that's it to them. But you weren't really investing in them anyway, because you only could afford one console, which a lot of the times was like what, PlayStation 5 at best, but never cared about Nintendo Switch, never cared about PC, never cared about all the other stuff in hand. So I think Xbox is like, if you can't beat them, join them.
I
Big way.
think I think it may it's I think that's the name of the game right now. To your point, Holtz. Like you would like I often ask people like actually like if you were a top tech company, who would you want to be? If you're a top tech company and you want to make profitability, lots of money in gaming, who do you want to be? Do you want to be Microsoft? Do you want to be Google? Do you want to be Apple? Or do you want to be Amazon? You want to make profit in gaming, the easiest profit in gaming. Which of those? It's not no right answer, but it does bring out a philosophy. Who would you
Well,
want to be?
the way I see it is like, it was this week when GeForce Now admitted that, announced, for example, that they've got more Game Pass games, and they've just had it easier to log in to the credentials from Game Pass with GeForce Now. So to me, it's like, if you can do that and you can sell a service at a 4080 for like what, 15, $18 a month, then why wouldn't you take that option then buying an
The,
Xbox game?
yeah,
So
the
what
consumer.
Xbox goes, you buy our service or you buy our game through us, Gameplay Anywhere, and then they're winning more than selling hardware that
Yeah,
costs a lot of overheads in manufacturing cost, R&D, delivery, dispatch, and Microsoft is just saying, well, take our games and just run anywhere else. I think
it,
that's I think that's a
exactly.
perfect model going forward.
Yeah, and like I said, that's why I asked, who would you rather be right now? Right now, before not the future, but right now, between those four, you said, hey, in the future, we want to make the most money off of gaming. Let me tell you all how they make money off of gaming, right? Like, I think Amazon actually is doing something really smart right now. But if y'all think like Google, you're like, oh, they killed Stadia. Let me remind you, Google owns the Android Play Store, right? Android App Store. They own that. And also, just like this content, or more importantly, those people who are like monetize all their gaming content, they make money off of that. Like they
And
don't really have that high of an overhead to make money off of gaming. Apple, go ahead, Tolt.
And
Or
years ago, I've always felt sorry for the spell. I've always felt sorry for Microsoft because years ago when they announced like DRM and always online and physicals getting outdated, I feel like they were projecting a future of gaming that gamers didn't want to accept, the majority of gamers, because we had physical consoles. And I feel like their messaging was right, but at the wrong time for gamers to accept. And now when you look back, you're like, we're always online, we're always playing services, and we're rarely getting trades in stores, physical stores on the high street, because they're losing profit. And you sit there and you go, wow, that wasn't Microsoft affecting your choice. That was you getting used to the times. And I
yeah,
feel like with them just saying, okay, we're going out of hardware manufacturing, we'll let other companies, like, it doesn't matter if I say it was like Steam, Valve, or it was the ROG Ally, or what other consoles, PlayStation 5 running Indiana Jones. We just go, we'll let them create the hardware costs and we'll just be a studio or a company that just leases out these games. I think they will be more profitable then without the overheads of the costs.
yeah. I think you're exactly right. Like I said, if it was Xbox, just Xbox, I think we would because they would run like a gaming company should run, but because it's Microsoft, right? And we see this numerous times, right? We see that's why Indiana Jones is on PlayStation 5. That's why Microsoft's the one that gave them this. It wasn't Xbox's coffers. It was like the Microsoft coffers that gave them the 70 to 80 billion dollars to buy the big publishers they did. They have to look at profitability. And when I look at that equation, they have to be jealous of some of these other companies that are like, we don't have nearly the R&D into gaming, but we're reaping the benefits. You all have the art. You all have to produce the games. You have to produce the technology, and you have to maintain that expectation from your consumers. That's a huge expectation.
Well, with
Like, you know,
expectation is if we see Microsoft doing this faster and faster, and we see more ports coming to PC, then gamers going forwards are going to say, well, why can't you give us day one or give us 6 months, 12 months? Why should we wait? Give us the opportunity to buy where we fancy. So, for example, Final Fantasy 16 demo. Why should we 18 months for the PlayStation exclusive? Shouldn't we start saying, Sony, stop being greedy and let's just,
see,
release it across
here's-
the board?
but here's the thing with Sony. So here's the thing with Sony, right? And I see a couple of y'all have mentioned Sony and Nintendo. Here's the thing about them. The business model works for them. Okay? Like you're not going to see Microsoft is in the position to where it's not working for them. They're third place. They're not getting the exclusives from third party like Sony does. They don't have the first party thing that makes people want to buy their hardware like Nintendo does. Like those other companies, their business model is predicated on selling hardware. Nintendo for certain, we know they make money
Well,
on everything you touch.
Nintendo's going to be the last stance.
Yeah.
PlayStation is showing that they're withering away. They're porting their games to PC. They're selling off licenses to other stuff. And you realize how long have they got left? Can they
Well,
actually produce a PlayStation 6?
Well, plus the thing about PlayStation though is still Sony is still a hardware company, even though they're leaning into subscriptions. They are still very much a hardware company,
Mm,
and
I don't know, Peter, because look back in the day, they had Sony Bravia TVs with cloud systems. They had the PlayStation Vita. They had the PlayStation VR2. They've ruined a lot of hardware space, and they're not challenging in these areas. So how far can we actually
Sony
trust
has
Sony?
the best 4K TV rated right now.
Yes, rated, but in the majority of sales, is it the best selling telly?
I mean, you have some new entrants now, but I would still say Sony's still a very formidable opponent. Like
Yeah,
the thing
so
about Sony is here's the thing about Sony because Sony actually makes a lot of money not just on the consumer side, right? 'Cause Sony actually makes a ton of money on the B2B side. And if we go back, like people forget how Sony PlayStation came about. Sony PlayStation came about because they had the technology already to produce a console because of their other business ventures. I'm not saying Sony is gonna make a 6th, 7th, whatever generation or not. What I am saying though is the business model for Sony Games and Entertainment works for Sony. To the point of, like, if you were to replace that model, right, and just say software and not have people into your ecosystem, like, how many extra peripherals did they sell of PSP? How much do they sell of, like, any other peripheral things for their accessories for their hardware? They make money off of that, right? The headsets I'm wearing right now, Sony, they are still much a physical hardware company. And I think for them, where Microsoft, it's imperative because their business model is, if you think about where Microsoft makes money, they mainly make money on software. Like they mainly make money on Office, they mainly make money on their enterprise, they make money on the cloud. That's how they make money. So it makes sense that their gaming division will go that direction. They don't make money on hardware.
But you see, it goes back to the point. So we just talked about the headphones, we talked about the OLEDs, which Sony deserve that credits. But then you sit there and you go, they are premium brands at a cost that's well inflated past its rivals, but we pretend that's premium. But then if we compare the Sony PlayStation to the latest GPU, the most hard hitting GPU, you go, oh well, don't worry about that. Don't compare apples to apples, and you go, okay, what's hardware to hardware? And I think Sony has got a naming brand that leads to consumers buying, and not really from a customer brand leading in how technology works. Because if that's the case, you would focus more on Xbox with the extra teraflops and the ecosystem and the games anywhere. But for some strange reason, Sony's got the strong hand in its marketing by saying, we are Sony, we have the exclusives. But yes, they do have first party exclusives, but nowhere near Nintendo.
No, I'm not doubting that. What I'm saying though is that Sony, and this is why I brought up, like, you have, for one, you're untapping like the Chinese market. There's quite a bit of articles on this actually, how this game, right? We have to remember China did not have
Mhm.
a PC console presence for the most part. It was mostly mobile. So now you're opening up into a market now that they're saying we do have PC and console. So you still are going to have that same type of consumer structure where you have some people who are going to buy high-end PCs, but you also have a lot of consumers who can't buy that but still want to play games.
Well,
Guess where that comes in? That's where the console comes in.
I've read a few articles that's saying that Black Myth Wukong is actually doing well for Sony in China.
Exactly.
And you
Ex-
sit in and you sit there and you go, okay, if that's the narrative that people are adopting because it's a Chinese franchise or studio and stuff like that, then you start realizing, like, why doesn't Microsoft sell well in other Asian countries, like maybe Japan? Is it because
Because
they choose Sony and Nintendo over Microsoft?
I think it's that. I think there's also consoles in China that we don't even know about. I also believe that it's just that if you think about, when I was on Xbox International's channel the very first time, shout out to both Louis and Sourblow, who were both in the chat earlier. They asked me, Purple, what type of games do you play? You have an Xbox. What type of games do you play? So if y'all it's down there, y'all see it. There's an Xbox somewhere in my background. But they asked me, what type of games do I play? And they said, they said, which one do you like more? Do you like racing games? Do you like fighting games? Or do you like shooters? That's what they said. And I said, well, why did you pick those three? And they said, well, that's what Xbox is built on. I think Xbox doesn't sell as well in other countries is because they are solely focused on a certain American gamer. I am not one of those gamers. If those three, y'all have never, I play racing games with Sanchez and Rouster, right? Just on my community play, but y'all never see me review those games. Shooters, I just recently started playing X Defiant. That's a free to play game. And then the other one is fighters. Y'all saw how bad I got beat by Cowboy.
Well,
So
I have
it's
to
like,
admit, people that gamers are biased, absolute genre biased, because they can talk about performance and optimization on their favorite console. And then if I dare say, for example, I'm playing Forza Motorsport, this performance and this resolution at this aspect ratio, they'll go, oh, it's a racer, and instantly dismiss the performance aspect and quality of the game. And you go, where did this sort of genre bias come in? That first person shooters are always the best cinematics or the best frames. And that is why a lot of people ask them questions, because they want you to answer for FPS.
yeah, I think, but that you asked me the question, why don't I think, and I think it's because it's not marketed to a Chinese audience. And so now that you have games that the game that they're saying is kind of like jump starting this Chinese push, and it's actually been in the works for a while, right? These single player narrative games, right? Um, if we look at that and we look at which consoles actually have the catalog of games to support that type of growing ecosystem, which they're saying is a resurgence in that type of game. They're putting that on there. Well, you would say it's Sony and Nintendo have that kind of like that type of that
Well,
type of
I always blame the countries. I always blame the countries because I've seen there from an Asian take where I wanted to play the games, but they didn't want to localize to the Western world, right? So I feel like we could be playing these franchises, but they want to stay in that sort of system that they've created, and I feel that's what China done. China stayed in their little, not a little country, but in their country, and they didn't want to sell their franchises to the West.
oh
And
for
we're like
sure.
and we're like, "Well, we wanna play it, we wanna know your history, we love the idea of these stories and this. Because why wouldn't we?" You know what I mean? We talk about, like, the Egyptians or the Greeks, and there's loads of mythologies that are a lot older, and we go, "Well, why wouldn't we wanna listen to China?" But they kept it in
But
their system of
but
ecosystems, and
but Holtz, let me just push back a little bit on that. I see that PlayStation gamer in the background. I want to push back on that just a little bit because sure, that's Chinese culture. But there are so many diverse narratives and culture in Western America, and when we try to tell those stories, guess what? It gets labeled woke.
woke. I
That's
mean
why that's why I
And
made the comment I
for
did
me, I
before.
still haven't got a clue what this woke or DEI. I know what it stands for. I understand what the term means, but it's shifting so much in media consumption that I'll sit there and go, for example, woke means awake
It does. That's what
right,
Rouster joked one
right.
time.
And you sit there and you go, okay, that what it means. But then I'm sitting there going to these movies where the Disney sales are flopping so hard. But I'm going to cinemas and I've got a whole family from family areas that are laughing, joking, 100 people, auditoriums selling out, laughing and joking at these media. And I go onto YouTube and I hear these horrible words, and then I hear like DEIs and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, well, promote what you're trying to say. And I listen to it and I go to myself, you're so wrong. But then I feel like because they're tying into franchise or establishments where they feel like it's affected them. And I'm like, I'm shaking my shoulders, going to myself, I don't understand where all this hatred's coming from. But
It
by all means, explain it. So,
No, well, I tried to give my take on it earlier. But yeah, but to your point, like you said, China's withholding their IP, so be it. But there's so many other stories in IP and cultures and in things that we could tell. But as soon as we try to tell a different story, and it's a character that just so happens to be
well, when we talk about Assassin's Creed Shadow, for example, what I love about Assassin's Creed, and I've known this since I've been playing day one Assassin's Creed, it always loads up and says, this game is made with pride from different cultures and ethnical groups. None of this is actual historical events. It's just made with, say, love, for example. It doesn't say that, but that's what I
yeah.
perceived it. And then people go, "Oh my god, this is not history accurate," and they go, "They've just told you that it's not history. He just told you it's just a game based on an idea of multiple ethnic groups working together to create a game. So, do I care if there's a female shogun? Do I care? No, I don't. I'm just happy to play and consume. And I go, the messaging was there before you load the game. If you didn't like the game, that's when you should have tuned out. That's when you should watch the
But
trailers
like I
and go,
said, I think it's another thing playing on in the background of it, Holtz. And but either way, Holtz, I do have another guess here. Um, as always, uh, thank you for your time, Holtz. Thank you for your opinion. Is there anything else, Holtz, you wanted to hit on?
no, that's it. Thank you.
All right. No, thank you so much, Holtz, for coming. And Holtz, you also know you can come back on for after the show if you want. All right. Let me get to this next. Thank you so much, Holtz. I want to get to this next one
Anytime.
before it gets too late. That PlayStation Gamer, what's going on?
What's up? How's your day going?
My night is going well. I'm actually traveling tomorrow.
Oh shit!
So
Damn.
I had to pack after this.
Oh damn. Well, I won't try to take up too much of your time. But
No.
I just want to say I'm very happy about Black Myth Wukong doing super well. Not just for, obviously the PlayStation gamer cares about that a little. But like I'm actually glad to see like we're starting to see kind of like this. I don't know how to describe it, but like this kind of AAA indie scene starting to pop up a little. Whereas like Black Myth Wukong, Baldur's Gate 3, Pow Worlds, they're all self-published games if I remember correctly. And they're just doing well. I'm happy about that. And I hope freaking people will, let these games actually, build a legacy. I would like to see a Black Myth Wukong too if they ever could do that. Although I don't know about the ending of the game.
Yeah. No, I think what you'll probably see so I agree. I think what you'll probably see with Black Myth Wukong, what I believe will happen, I talked about it about a month ago. I think you're going to see a lot of IP coming out of China that's going to try to mimic. So China has a rich history, right? Like you're going to probably see a ton of IP that's coming out that's in parallel to Journey to the West. Games coming out in these single player narratives. Like I actually think you're going to see a resurgence of what we saw initially with the initial console generation, which was single player narrative based games. And so, given that, I think if that's what you're looking for, you're going to see quite a bit of that.
Oh yeah, I'm very happy with that game. Although I haven't been playing it myself, I've been watching people play it. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I should not have bought Concord. I should have bought Black Myth Wukong. I had enough for one game. I bet on the wrong horse.
No, I mean, hey, you can come back and play it. It is fun. David Wilson's playing it. I know Marcus in chat
I'm more likely
is
going to pick
playing
it up
it.
soon.
Lens
And
of
also, I
Truth is
just want to
playing it.
say,
Yeah.
I also just want to say, I called it. I told people for a while Xbox was going to put Indiana Jones on PlayStation, and people sat there and went, "Oh, but Phil Spencer said, yeah." Anytime Phil Spencer's mouth opens, expect the opposite of what he's saying at this point. I mean, come on, man. This man sell you fucking tomatoes when he promised you oranges.
No. Well, hey, I think a lot of us saw it, but I still don't think that game's gonna be a good game, but that's just me. I know I have a couple of people.
I watched some gameplay of it. I was like, dude, I'm kind of iffy about that one.
I've
But I
been
would
saying
like
I
to
don't
see
think-
Starfield come to PlayStation just because I got a first person RPG itch that needs to be scratched.
You may see it.
And they did just add the vehicle.
Yeah, Internet of Games is playing it too. Yep, a lot of people are playing Wukong. No, I'm enjoying. Like I said, it's kind of like type of like best way I can explain it. And the people who've played it, so that's Lens of Truth, Wilson, Marcus. Actual Life, I don't know if you've played it. You seems like you might. I know you were gonna look at it. I think it's like a boss rush hack and slash.
From what I could
Destiny
tell
Warriors
about
game.
it, so people kept telling me it was a Souls-like game. I'm like, no, this is not a Souls-like game. I would say it's more closer to something like God of War 2018 with a kind of Souls-ish DNA in there.
I don't know. Some of those bosses. So Zara, y'all know I always pump this girl up. I'm gonna try to get her on the show. Zara plays games. The craziest thing. So she's in Australia, TPG, and she was on. For anybody who's playing it, she was on the the snake boss in the forest level.
Oh,
She fought that. I went into a call at around 11:30. She was on that, and then when I came back at 3:30, she was still fighting that same boss. This is a chick who plays like Elden Ring and all these other games. She's actually a better gamer than me for sure. And I mean, it didn't take me that long to beat that guy, but like some of the bosses are legitimately, you kind of have to be used to a controller. That's all I'm going to say. Like there's so many things you're doing in that game. So I would say some of the bosses.
That's why I always feel bad for like I see some of these games out, like these action-driven games. Like, how the hell are people playing this on mouse and keyboard? That just seems wrong. Go get a controller right now.
I don't know. I don't know how you're. I mean, that's actually a good question. I don't know. David Wilson, are you playing it on mouse? Because I know David Wilson's playing it through GFN. Internet of Games is also playing it on PC. Um,
Do I
I
hear a
don't know.
PlayStation game? Is anyone playing it on PlayStation? $1,
I am
$1.
I am playing on PlayStation, and I believe Lens of Truth is playing on PlayStation. I may get it on PC just to. I actually may get it on PC just so I can test it out between GFN and my PC and PlayStation, just so I can see the difference. I'm thinking about just doing that, but who knows? Maybe not. And I see Extra Life. You're
Yeah,
not gonna play. You're saving it for other games. Totally hear you. I might give it away. I might not.
I plan on
But
getting
yeah.
a gaming PC by the end of this year, and I think one of the first games I'm going to get for is that Black Myth Wukong, or I don't know, State of Decay 2, Halo Infinite. I don't know, whatever comes to my mind, because I'll be a PC gamer. I'll be that PlayStation PC gamer.
Why don't you just get? Why don't you get GFN?
GFN. Oh, that's the streaming service, right?
Yeah, why don't you get like a lower end PC and just get GFN?
I've thought about it, but I'd like the idea of having like an actual like gaming PC, like just like the classic kind of look. Plus, I'm never getting rid of my PlayStations. Those suckers are gonna collect dust for the rest of the existence. But yeah, and by the way, I want to say this right now to anyone out there who's celebrating Indiana Jones coming to PlayStation as like a middle finger to Xbox. Guys, I'm telling you right now, do not be shocked one day you see The Last of Us on Xbox. And I'm all for that, by the way. I 100% on board for that, because the more people that get exposed to these IPs, the better. And I feel like people need to kind of get out of this console war mindset of, no, these are my games. No, these are my games. Like, no, how about they're all of our games? Now have some fruit snacks and hold hands, and while the camp counselor sings Kumbaya.
Thank you. No, that's awesome. TVG. Well, TVG is is a game that time. But anything else, TVG? Thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, just the awesome channel. I like listening to you while I'm playing Concord. Freaking need to learn how to finally kill someone.
Oh my god, that's ridiculous game. And Rouster says all games should be on all systems. Totally hear you on that one, Rouster. I think it all depends on their I just say, as long as you're finding games that you like to play, and I understand why things are. That's all I give you my predictions based upon my own business experience, as well as I told y'all kind of like when I was on the red team for the military. So with that, thank you, TBG. I'm gonna probably shut it down here in a second unless you have anything else to say.
No, well, thank you for having me on.
No, thank you.
Kumbaya, my lord.
Thank you. All righty. Thanks for coming on. That was Holtz, are you still there? Holtz, did you come back on? No, I think Holtz is good. So y'all, yes, well, that is the show, y'all. Told you I was going to talk about some controversial stuff. Thank you all so much for hanging in there. I know we kind of went off. I don't think we went off track. I definitely did want to get my own thoughts out there about Black Myth Wukong. Like I said, overall, I think the game is especially for the first try for a AAA game, I think it is a very solid effort. I think it's totally okay to question the studio and see what has happened there. Totally understand if y'all don't want to support the studio based upon the allegations. Totally understand if you believe allegations are false. The one thing is that I think, for me personally, allegations potentially have some merit just based upon where we're talking about in the industry we're talking about. But that doesn't necessarily take away from the fact that I think they did a solid job on the game, and I think uh, this could be the beginning of seeing a very different gaming landscape as we see, and we talked about this a few weeks ago, as we see more Chinese developers, more investors really going into China, trying to produce games there, as well as and Holtz hit on this earlier, and this is why I feel like people who are saying, well, why can't we do something like Black Myth Wukong, something very culturally rich, something diverse in a narrative here? And that's why I brought up the entire idea around DEI, or what people are calling woke or woking, whatever Colts called it. And when they villainize that, and it's like, what you realize what you're doing is yeah, sure, that game that may have had a character you didn't like or something that you thought was an agenda may have not done well. What you've actually done as well by making that game harsh, like penalizing it, the game that could have been really done well, the narrative that could have been told that's diverse, the story that could have been something from that is truly Americana, if that's what you want to even call it. You just now killed that game from potentially being funded or being made because of how you've reacted to it. And so, like I said, I think there are some bad faith actors out there in the gaming community who are anything that's diverse are going to tear down. But for a lot of us, I think like, hey, even if it's not a story that resonates with us, like it's worth like at least saying like, "Hey, at least they gave it a shot. At least they're trying to diversify the narrative. At least they're trying to eventually lead to what could become our own Black Myth Wukong," right? Um, so yeah, that's what I got to be on there. Um, yeah, internet games. I totally hear you. I totally hear you on this one. So yeah, but with that said, thanks Roster for coming by. Roster, thanks also for I never say this to Roster, but Roster, thank you so much for just coming by and always being a moderator. Never tell you that. Roster and Ambi always do a really great job with that and Wit, but for sure, Roster and Ambi holds all y'all do a great job. Wilson, thanks for coming by and for y'all. I should be back by Sunday. If I'm not back, I'm sorry, I'm not back. The planes. But I should be back. We'll be continuing with Still Wakes the Deep. And then next week, Shades of Purple will be a little different. I still have to solidify it. So it won't be my talk show and it won't be my interviews, but we do. September, I think, is full of interviews. So if you're someone who wants interviews, September will be all interviews every single Thursday. I thank you so much for everybody who said yes to that. Some of them came by through chat. So I am super excited about that. But next Thursday will be something a little bit different. So hopefully I get to showcase something to y'all for the first time. Thank you all. And Mafia, the old country is America. You're right, Internet of Games. You are right. All right, y'all. Take care. And I will see you all. Well, not yet. I don't care where you game, how you game, why you game, what you game on. As long as you're gaming, you're good with me. And as always, and I said it already in the show, but as always, the proof is in the plane. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care. Okay, I pressed the button. Nothing happened. There we go.